Welcome once again to the old Relove Guitars workshop, or otherwise known as the shed. Greetings to people from far away, folks in America. I think it's all kind of early morning for you guys. Oh, better turn my phone off. Oh gosh, I get caught out every time. Yeah, so for me it's day 11 after my surgery for gallbladder infection or gallstones, and I'm still a bit weak and grotty, so I'm pacing myself. Well, I say I'm pacing myself, what it means is I do a guitar and then I can't do anything the next day, and then I come back a couple of days later and do another one. So I suppose it's pacing myself. It's quite frustrating not being able to do anywhere near as much as I could, but here we have, I'm kind of, because I'm recuperating, I'm in my house outfit. So anyway, what I have here today is this, I think, a really quite nice thing. And it's, I've not seen well, I've seen Jim Deacon guitars before, and this is a Deacon, and I don't even know, I can't even find from online whether they're exactly the same brand. Even it's very hard with some of these manufacturers. They just sort of not disguise themselves, but they're just hidden behind whatever sort of retail marketing, distribution name and so on. And of course they're all made somewhere in China anyway. But anyway, whether this is a Jim Deacon or a Deacon, it doesn't really matter. It's a Deacon, and I got this on eBay. And first of all, I kind of liked the colour, but actually what most attracted me to it was, I suppose, first of all, it's got a maple neck. It looked pretty nice. It had these abalone sort of inlays. The neck looked quite good quality. The nut had a good look about it. But a particular attraction was this cream-looking scratch plate, which is clearly all matched together with Wilkinson pickups. Thank you. And that alone was almost worth the price I paid for it. So, and then I got this quite standout, striking green, fairly full weight body. Actually, it's quite a nice thing. It's pretty thick. It's got the tiniest of blemishes around where the join is. A tiny, I mean, an absolutely minuscule little hairline crack. It's only about, I don't know, 8 or 9 centimeters, millimeters long. So it's nothing at all. It's got the split post. No, it hasn't. It's got standard sealed tuners up there, but they're not bad quality. They've got the sort of nice shiny button things there. They're on a par with the Encore Blaster type of quality. But actually, I have to say this is a better quality guitar feel than the Encore Blasters. But it's not a million miles away starting out from that quality. Although I would say these are better than by miles, actually, quite some way better than the Guitar Tech, which are also made by or designed by Wilkinson or Trev Wilkinson. But these are much better pickups. They're quite nice. They've got a really nice tone to them. And it's got stamped bridge saddles, and they're all clean and rust free, which is great for a change. And they're stamped in MVB. And to be honest, I have no idea what that stands for. Now, first thing on getting this is the action's really high. If I were to measure it, which I of course will do, it's sort of piling in at 3mm easily at the 22nd fret, so I'll write that down as I usually like to do. 3mm at 22nd fret. And we've got also quite a huge action here at the first fret as well, which I'll just quickly measure out as well. I'm hoping to be able to do this guitar today. It shouldn't be that complicated at all. It's really nice that this feels like it's going to be a quick job relatively. Well, that's just about playing on 0.8, so about 0.85 at the first fret. So 0.85, it's way too high, it's 0.5 mm too high, my book. at the first fret, which is why it plays like a pig and this doesn't stay in tune. Interestingly, I had a caller from Scotland the other day who called about a video he'd seen in which I talked about this the significance of the nut. The nut on the first fret action, and how when it's too high, as a player, all you can really do is describe this thing as not being in tune. You just can't get this thing in tune. Yes, it feels high and it's hard to play up here, and it's even higher up here, but the main feeling is that you can't get it in tune. And he had exactly that experience with his Les Paul Standard. Anyway, being a nice guy, I gave him enough clues that he was able to fix it himself. So, you know, some people say, well, you idiot, why give away information and do yourself out of a job? But then again, I have a sort of slightly different view on that. Maybe it's not very cutthroat commercial, but I'd much rather help somebody out such that they feel probably more likely to trust you or trust me when they need something doing that they're not confident in doing themselves. So I think for the sake of a few quid, being able to help somebody one time, I'm sure it comes back in other ways. So anyway, but that's an example of how important this is. So this 0.885 up here makes it really difficult to play. What's quite interesting in this guitar, I don't know why, but this neck feels to me like many a Telecaster neck that I've played. Maybe it just looks like one, but kind of has the profile of a few that I've played. But anyway, it's going to shine up brilliantly. There's almost nothing to do, in fact there is nothing to do structurally around this thing. So without further ado, I've played it so all the electrics work. So the first stage of this game is to just get straight into it, really. Don't want it to be too long, excuse me, too long drawn out thing. So what we're looking to do in this world of guitars, you see what I did there, and this sounds very scientific. I'm looking for the point at which I can balance this guitar neck without gravity affecting the tuning. So I can actually hear, when I do it down this end, I can hear the note raise and fall. You could do it on a very sensitive tuner. Anyway, I tend to find around the 9th to the 12th fret is quite a good spot to place the neck, and it doesn't go it doesn't really have any gravity. It's kind of cancelled out. You're a mixture of gravity and support, so it's somewhere around about the 9th is good. Sorry, I've still got trouble breathing in. So technically, it's probably, you know, it's more accurate to do everything this way, but you can do all this stuff here, providing you stay, and I've made this point a billion times already, but providing you stay conscious about what you're doing. For example, if you recognise that this is going to, how should we say it, slacken the strings slightly, it's going to reduce the gap, however you do it. If you're resting it there or if you're resting it there, you're just going to slightly run the risk of just fractionally reducing the gap, so that when you take it off and hang it this way, the gap's going to be slightly bigger. If you do what you're doing with that in mind, then you just know to accommodate it. It becomes, if you do this enough, it becomes second nature. So the process with this guitar is to, we're going to do it the new way round, which is to set the ideal playing action, irrespective of whether it can accommodate that action or not. Right now we're not bothered whether it chokes or buzzes or whatever. We're just going to set it the way we want it, and then we're going to make the frets live up to that aspiration. So the simplest first thing I'm going to do is switch glasses. I'm going to go to sorry, I've also got to stay conscious this time. Somebody said that I was deafening everybody with pulling bits of masking tape off guitars, and the microphone's right here, so it's always sort of in the midst of the action, so apologies. It's quite hard to stop and move it around or hit buttons to take the volume down. Okay, so one of the things I can see straight away is I don't have an awful lot of downward adjustment room on this bridge, and that's straight away telling me I haven't really thought this through, but straight away that's telling me if I'm going to get to an action that I'd like to get to, I'm going to need to put a shim in this neck, and in a way that's probably going to need to be the very first thing I do. There's a bit of stretch play in the tremolo arm, sorry, in the tremolo plate, and actually what I don't quite know, I've forgotten, is whether this guitar came with a tremolo or not. It'd be kind of nice if it did. It's got a rubber drop in one side. I think it's probably more like a vintage straight bar. Let's have a look anyway. I mean, no, it's not quite that one. So that's a little bit. I guess that might be the vintage one, the Wilkinson one. But if it's a nice, clean tremolo sort of setup, there's no reason why not to use it. Although, judging by this, it appears to take a fatter arm than we've got available. So I don't think it did come with an arm. In which case, we'll kind of effectively do it as a hardtail. Well, just stretch the tremolo block flat. Anyway, so contrary to what I'd started out hoping, the very fact that I can't reduce this action any further down here to give me the low playing action I want means I'm going to have to take the neck off and put a shim under there to raise it, and I can pretty much calculate how much I need to raise it. So currently we've got 2 millimeters right here, and it's a millimeter higher than I want it, so we need to raise the bridge by a millimeter. In fact, if we raised it by 2, then we've got more room to play on these. So if we raise it just by 1, we kind of start out at 1 millimeter. Now let's go with 1. We'll aim for a 1. So I have to find some material. I'll probably cut some strips of brass to make a thin little 1 millimeter thick, and I'll glue them together and I'll just place them in there. But it's a shame really, because, well, it's just going to extend the time this whole thing takes. C'est la vie. I want a good playing action. So first of all, off comes the strings. If we'd have not had to put the shim in, then I would have been able to just basically get straight on and set the action, and then start fret leveling, which is a kind of nice way around. And then once we've got that, the frets working with that action, then we go back and tidy up any details, such as well, cleaning it. We have to obviously reshape the frets once we've leveled them, and so on. But now I'll keep these strings on here because I think I'll need them again. So they do get a bit catchy. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get the power thing, and I'm going to make a noise. Apologies. There's a phone coming my way. It's not the phone.
It's the pops.
Back in a minute. Okay, back after call. I've got Morris clambering around here now. Come on. Look, say hello to your friends. Look up here. Yes. He's just checking out the kind of quality work, and actually what he pointed out to me was look at this, Morris, with the quality of that block there, that tremolo block. It's amazing, isn't it? Yeah? Yeah? Do you think? It is amazing actually. It's a full-size steel block, which is definitely not something you'd get in an Encore Blaster. So there's quite a bit about this guitar that is a nice quality to begin with. Anyway, I was in the process of taking off the neck. Well, I hadn't started, but anyway, we're taking off the neck, and I've put a couple of extra springs in here, and as I take the neck off, I just flip it over, and I want to make sure there are, or see if there are any shims in place. And that's not a shim, that's just a piece of paper that's probably been left in to mark the holes for drilling, actually, or some such. Anyway, I have got a shim that I've made earlier. It's now just over 1 millimeter, and I'm going to, I'll probably glue it in, but Don't have to, but it'll probably stay put for a minute if I glue it in. The position of this shim is going to be just as close to the back as is feasible, and it's made of 3 strips of brass, one folded. It's not very good glue, I have to say. It's probably not appropriate. It's one piece folded double and another thin piece. It's not going to stick at all. Useless. It might do if I just press down on it now. But anyway, the purpose of that is to elevate this. That's a nice fit. We just want to elevate this neck up the correct amount. I should have thought before I started this, but hey, I'm just going to flip it over, put these back in place, get ready to position the screws. So if you remember, I said that about 1 millimetre would have been good, so I'm actually raising it by 1.1 millimetres roughly. Hello, sweetie.
How long have you been now?
Not too long.
I've been upstairs for over an hour.
Well, it'll be okay.
I
won't.
Come on.
I promise. So I'm just positioning things, make sure the screws go in the right place. And in reality, what I want to do is probably pull the front down first. So I'll go with those front 2 gently into place, and then I'll pull the back into place afterwards. And then I'll just let it torque. I've set the torque on 5 on this screwdriver, which is where I like to have it. Now this will have raised the neck now, and you don't see it anywhere. That's a good thing about it. It all looks tight and tidy. But if I were, which I'll have to, let's say I was now to put back on this. Yeah, that's raised it. It's actually quite a lot. So let's just see. We may take out one of these layers if I've shimmed it too much. But the nice thing is, if you've got your strings still there, you can now do what I'm doing, which is go back and check what you got as a result of your shimming. Now, for me, what it's done is it's crunched my strings against the bridge, against the frets, which is what I aimed for. And now everything from the ground up now is raising it up to the kind of action I probably want. And the good thing about getting your ideal action with the shim in place is that it sinks most of these little grub screws into the bridge saddles, which means they don't stick up as a sharp thing, which often you can get on guitars or Strats. Now I'm getting some buzzing there, which is, I can promise you, the result of some uneven frets, but actually it's starting out quite nicely. So with that, I'm going to now just have a go at putting all these strings back in. And at this point, because they're already old strings and we're only using them for the purpose of putting the guitar neck under load, you start to expect them to break at this point. Let's not be at all surprised if they do. So it's just on the basis, if we can just get this job out of these strings, we'll be happy. Not really bothered about whether they play or not. Just need to put the neck under the correct pressure, and they need to survive long enough for us to do the fret leveling work and the nut slot cutting. Of course, is all part of the same basic setup. Now, for those of you who may have joined this and never or not seen one of my setups before, I suppose the thing to point out is that when I do a setup, I almost always, pretty much always, exclusively, do a fret level at the same time. And the reason for that is that is that all guitars have uneven frets unless they've been worked on, and uneven frets will constrain how low, or limit how low you can go with your action, because you go low enough and the unevenness of the underlying frets starts to impact and cause choking and buzzing and so on, and it means you can't lower the strings anymore and have a decent playability. So as a way to get a better playing action, I level the frets. I hate trying to put on curly strings, they're just so uncooperative. Yeah, so I level the frets in order to get to give us the option for a better lower level, a lower action. And of course in the process it does a few other things. It makes the guitar easier to play generally. Nice. Makes the guitar easier to play, and it also takes away any imperfections such as dents and grooves that you may have got as a result of years of playing open chords and so on. So having just put the strings on again, I'm just going to quickly, before I tighten them up, I'm just going to check the action. We've got about, actually 1.5 on that E string at the moment, which is fine. We could go even a bit lower, to be honest. I prefer starting low and then moving up. But so 1.5, I'll go 1.5 all the way across, and we'll work to that. It's a bit fiddly, this part of it. You tend to need a bit better light than I've currently got, but I get away with it. Again, you can always come back and fine tune this, but setting the first basic action is what we're going to work the fret leveling to. So having set 1.5, I'm going to fret level and make sure that the frets can play properly, or make the guitar play properly at that action of 1.5. And of course, getting this right now, because of the shim, we've also got the option to go lower again if we want. You know, once we've got it playing, the shim gives us that option. Before, we were stuck with whatever we could get out of, well, it's low, we were flat on the deck, and that was the lowest we would get. Okay, I'm going to get an A note. Okay, so we've got an action down this end that's okay. The bridge is currently pretty flat to the deck because of the extra springs I put in the back. I'm really surprised at that full weight block. I don't know if it's been upgraded or if it's absolutely bog standard with the Deacon guitars. I've got a feeling it's been upgraded, so it's a lucky find, but we never know. So having done this action at this end, now what I need to do before I do the fret leveling is to do the action at this end. And I know the range that I'm looking for down here from experience, and it's 0.3 of a millimetre over there. So having explained, or briefly explained, why we level the frets, so it gives us clean, polished, resurfaced frets, or dressed frets as people call them. It gives us that, but it also it also allows us to lower the action to where we want it. The next thing, as important a thing in the setup, is to get the nut slots cut right so that the action over the first fret, the critical thing, is right. And I'm looking for around about 0.3 on each of these strings over the first fret. So a variety of different heights. So I'm just going to roll off the first two strings here, or the lower two, push them off the side, and just work this way for a minute. And I can see the gap. I'll start with the D string, and I'm just going to file away, slightly tilting slightly backwards, and cut away until I get to the height I want. Pretty much almost there. It's a patient process. Do. This is this action here, this operation, makes probably the biggest difference, the biggest single difference to a guitar that you can possibly make with your time and money. Of all the things, if you came to me and said, I've got, I don't know, 25 quid, what shall I spend it on? I would do this. This makes the guitar instantly easier to play, and it completely solves the kinds of intonation problems that you get down here that you don't even know are intonation problems, but just make you think you can't get the guitar in tune. And so many people now I've come across have that same experience, even with expensive guitars. And if you can just get this right, that's good. If you can get this right, you'll find it just changes completely the way the guitar feels to play, which is pretty nice. When you're doing this, that doesn't have to be precisely in tune. I'm just tensioning it up enough so that the string sits cleanly in the slot and doesn't hang around the top and give me a false reading. I need it to sit far into the slot so I can get this height correct. This comes down to experience, whether you get this right or wrong. You need to have a feel for the materials, different materials that you're cutting into, and they're all different. And if you get it right, you get a great playing guitar. If you get it wrong and overcut it, usually, it's about the only way you can get it wrong, then you find yourself needing to repair the nut or replace it. And it's not a tragedy, because it's only 7 quid or something to buy another bone nut for this, or £4 for a graphite one. But just better to be careful and make sure you don't overcut. You need to go slowly and remember that the different parts of the different blades cut differently, and different materials behave differently. This tusky stuff that's on. This material tends to, it's not too bad, but sometimes it acts a bit spongily, which is why I'm a fan of bone. It's the easiest for me to work. Yeah, I would always buy bone for replacing nuts, because, like I say, easier to work for me, more predictable, and it's perfectly good as a nut material as well. Okay, so what I'm looking for here is the same. Check the height and see how much gap we've got under there, check the shadow, and then cut away slowly and carefully. Again, particularly at these top ones, this is where not only does the material seem to behave differently, also the files cut differently from each other, and if you go at it like you were down on the E or A string, you can be in trouble very quickly. If you overcut it, you're left with either a repair option, which uses baking soda and super glue, where you basically fill it with the baking soda and then drop some low viscosity super glue into it, and that will make a paste or a cement that you can recut with the nut files. Or you just have to replace it, in which case, in this sort of nut on a Telecaster or a Strat, it can be quite hard work to get out. So just go slowly. Probably the most important thing is to, if you can, keep the string tension as high as you can while you're doing it. I mean, up to tune, not higher than tune. Okay, now I don't usually use the 10, the top one for the E. I go back one stage and just repeat the 13 on this set of 10s which I'm using, although I'm going to restring this with 9s anyway. But I use one slightly oversized because I don't like them being exactly on the same size. I've found, despite being recommended that's what you should do, found that if you use the exact same gauge for the string you're using, you often get gripping or pinching. So I would rather a slightly larger calibre. And you know, if anyone thinks, oh well, that will cause all kinds of rattling problems with the string in the slot, just bear in mind that the nut slots on your guitar that you bought the other day will have been set by the manufacturer at the largest likely gauge you're going to buy. So the slots on your default guitar will be take anything up to a 13 in that slot without causing any problems, and you can put a 9 in there and it won't rattle around and cause problems. So you know, you've got quite a bit of leeway. So what I've discovered since learning that is that my 10 set of nut files pretty much does for everything so far. It wouldn't do if I was trying to do a super heavy set, and I might have to sort of either buy another set or just modify the way I use them. The latter is probably more likely. I don't want to spend 50 quid for the very rare occasion that I might put on a set of 13s for somebody. But there you go, just throw it all on the floor. It's one of the downsides of being ill. You seem to become a complete klutz. And it's all designed for you to have to bend over and hurt your operation wounds. Damn it. Okay, let's just get another A. Now, if the string had broken at that point, which it has every right to do since it's an old string, I would have taken one of my Harley Benton sets, which I bought really cheap, and replaced it for the sake of this job, because you need to do this with all the strings on this next job. It feels completely different already. You can hear it choking out around the middle here. It's because there are some uneven frets, and there's actually a fair bit of neck relief in there. Enough, nothing too much, and it's still choking, which means it's the frets which are uneven, which we completely anticipate anyway, which is why we're heading now towards levelling them. So at this point, and this is where you've got to be careful, because this is a maple fingerboard. So what I want to do under here is I want to just draw marker pen across the top of the frets, and I'm just going to be very careful and I'll avoid hitting the maple fingerboard. Now this marker pen, its purpose is to tell me the progress of my fret leveling and indicate where the fret leveling file has or hasn't cut into the metal. It's quite a flat fret up there, somebody's done some work on that one, but it doesn't look like they've reshaped it, so I think they've levelled a fret to try and cure a problem and then just left it. Yeah, so this marker pen just lets me know where I've been and what I've worked on and what I haven't. It's a bit slow and fiddly, but I'm just going to try and do this in 3 kind of swipes. And the fret leveling part next isn't going to come anywhere near touching the fingerboard, so there's no damage, no risk of any damage to the fingerboard. Once we've done the leveling part, then I will take off the strings and chuck them away, these old strings, and at that point I'll mask off the fingerboard, ready for reprofiling each of the frets, so to shape it back from a flattened thing to a rounded thing, and then the sort of last part of the fret leveling process will be filing the frets, sanding the frets smooth into a playing condition, and that's where the masking tape will be really important, because that's the place where the fingerboard's likely to get damaged with the rough use of sandpaper. I'll schedule myself a pause at some point not too far from now, because I feel I'm getting tired. Okay, so here's the amazing fun bit. I'm going to use my tool, and I was going to possibly use a new one that I've got, but actually I'm going to stick with the original one. So my tool for leveling frets is a very simple thing, and it's inspired by, in fact what I'm going to do is I'm going to just replace the, no, I'm not going to replace the tape just yet. It's inspired by a tool called a katana, which is a great invention, which for a number of reasons, which I won't now go into detail, I'm not able to use. End of detail. Anyway, despite that, it's a good invention, and since I'm not able to use it, I have basically, what's the word? Compromised? No. Innovate? No, I don't know. Anyway, I've compromised? No. Anyway, senile moment. I've made my own, and it's not quite as convenient as that aforementioned tool, but it works bloody well. So what I use is a truss rod, and it's a single action truss rod, and 3 little brass, I don't know, domed screw head things, screws, no, oh god, nuts, domed nuts, madam. It's hard remembering names for things. Anyway, I've got 3 of them, and the good thing is about these little 3 domed things is they're all the same. i.e. they're all the same height, and that's the important thing. And they, when on the guitar, they stand up higher than the strings. Now, what's good about this is, if you think about what we've just done, we've got the guitar into its normal playing condition, the neck is under full load of the strings, tuned to normal, except this one's hanging off. We've got the amount of curvature or relief in the neck that we want. We've got the nut action correct, we've got the bridge action correct, and it feels nice to play, except we've got notes being a bit compromised by uneven frets. And so the point about this is we're going to level the frets, but you might think, how do we level the frets if the neck is currently curved? And why, well, first of all, why would we want to do it with a neck curved? And the simple answer to that is that when the neck is under load, it behaves differently from when it's passive and not under load. So I used to flatten the neck out and use a flat tool to level the frets relative to each other, and then you'd put it back on, put it under load, it would go curved a little bit, you put your strings on, and it would be pretty good. And all of my good early results were done that way. You've got to remember that's like a 90% improvement on non-leveled frets, so it's pretty damn good. But I learned over time, and particularly thanks to the guy who invented the katana tool, which I'm not showing here, but that helped me to understand the added precision, if you like, of being able to level frets while the neck was in playing position, because the neck is now under compression as well as the loading to make it curved, so it's squished and curved at the same time. And what follows is if you're able to level the frets relative to each other here, then when you put a new set of string back on, or well, you take the strings off to finish off the frets, and then when you put the strings back under load, it'll behave exactly the same, and it will return to its leveled position, even though it's curved. And how the hell do you level a curved surface, or how do you level a set of curved frets? By using a truss rod with some sandpaper on it. How do I match the curvature of the truss rod to the neck? By taking these three little brass feet, putting them equidistant along the neck, and if I just want to make sure of that, I can just visually compare the two. So that will go there. It's about right. And then what do? Well, if I've got a straight truss rod and the neck is curved, these 3 points will describe a curve. That will be higher than that one will be higher than that one. If I place a truss rod across the top, and if the truss rod is flat, I expect it'll touch either end and not the middle. And if you can see, it's touching either end, and when I move it, it's moving the end one, and I'm holding it firm against this one, but it's not touching the middle one at all. So it means that this isn't curved because this point isn't touching the middle one. So if I now wind up a little curvature into it and put it back on here, then straight away it's over curved. It's now touching the middle first and not the end. So I need to slack off a fraction. Go back, touch it down, and it's still a bit much in the middle. This is so fractional, so minute. There we have it. That's now tuned to the curvature in that part of the neck. Now notice I did it on the first bit. I'm going to tune it 3 places. I'm going to tune it in there, in the middle, and at the other side. And if it's no change, it's fine. I'll carry on using it as it is. If it changes, I'll tune fractionally, marginally to meet. Now here's the fun bit. And this is where the katana tool beats this. The katana tool is brilliantly constructed so that you don't have to move any strings to carry on levelling, because it sort of levels underneath the strings. Here, because I'm just using a 0 pounds, 0 pence truss rod, I have to move a string out of the way each time. And to do that, I either have to pull it off to one side or slip it over the edge. And in doing that, what is true is that I'm changing slightly, not hugely, but I'm changing slightly the load on the neck, probably. I'm not actually sure if that's true, but I think I'm changing the loading a little bit. And I'm starting to resort to kind of weird things to make this thing work. So I'm lashing this string onto the tone selector, and I'm just going to use that crude thing to pull it off to one side while I do the work. Now, a bit crude, but it didn't cost me anything, so why not? So with my truss rod perfectly tuned to match the curvature of the neck, or the relief of the neck down at this part or this side of the guitar, all I do now is I just let gravity very carefully do its work, and I just make sure that the truss rod is in place, and I work it up and down, and it's got 400 grit sandpaper, self-adhesive sandpaper, stuck to the underside. And all I do for a minute is just go up and down in the gap that I've got, and then I'll stop and I'll show you. You won't probably won't be able to see too well, but I'll try and show you what's cutting, if you like, and what isn't. Right, and I'll just point it out to you, even if it's not visible. But so this is cutting on that surface, that's cutting there, that's cutting there. So yes, no, yes, yes, no, 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 yes, 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 no, no. So at the moment, it shows me that these two are quite high, and these 3, 4 up here are quite high. So I'm just going to carry on for a minute, gently levelling away. I'm not afraid of doing this. The 400 grit is very gentle paper, or gentle grade, if you like. And the truth is, you've got to get, if you want levelled frets and if you want to be able to have a really low action, you've got to go down as far, you've got to take the high frets down as far as they have to go to meet the lower frets and balance out. Now, if you for some reason have got a guitar with an extremely some extremely low frets and some extremely high frets, you may start to worry that you have to go take too much metal off all the frets in order to balance out, and that could be the case. You have to make a sort of call on that, a judgment call. The other thing is, if I find myself starting to cut away only at the edges, I'm going to go back and just double check that my shape, if you like, the profile of my truss rod is still correct. I don't want it to be, I don't want it to be just cutting those places because I tuned it wrong. Now, I did buy another one, which is interesting, this one here from Stumac in the US, and I haven't tried this out. My reservation, I liked it because it was stiffer and it shouldn't deform, it should keep its curve much more precisely. Also this one, you can see there's a gap between oh, you might not see, but there's a gap between they're welded at both ends, but there's a gap between the bar and the plate which you can kind of press into. If you push hard, sort of with pressure you can flatten it out, so you could be accidentally flattening it in use. This one I think is going to work better. I'm going to just to plonk it on here. It's shorter actually, it's quite interesting. You have to pull in our little things. Okay, so this one, same sort of thing applies. Actually, can't even tell if it's touching. Anyway, what's different is it's also thicker, wider. It's about two and a bit times wider. No, exactly twice as wide as this little footing here. And I quite like the thinness of that one. Anyway, let's just carry on with. I haven't done any experiments with that, so I'm not going to start just yet. Let's just go back to this one and recheck our choice. Well, it's touching all three at once, which is proof that it's matching the curve correctly. So I trust what that reading's telling me, which is the great thing about this. You know, if you sort of develop the confidence to know that, you know, when your tools are telling you something, you can listen to them because they're not. It's physics. They're not lying to you. So what it means is these are genuinely higher than these here, and if we want to get this level, we need to go some distance further on these uneven ones. What's great about this is that you don't have to go all the way till everything's shining. Because the strings are on and everything's in place, this is what you can do, and this is the advantage of this approach, by the way. So you can put the string back into its place and just try it. Still a bit fizzy around there, so I've still got work, but that's the real, to me that's the marker, that's what I'm looking for. It's whether it plays. If it plays all the way up at the action I've chosen, then it's done as far as I'm concerned. Even if it doesn't have to, even if it doesn't touch the all of these frets. There's nothing achieved by leveling everything. You need to level it, if you like. Ideally, you level it as far as you need to achieve clean playing for the action you've set. Why level it microscopically to play at 0.5 millimetre when I want to play at 1.5 millimetres at the 22nd fret? So I'm aiming for around 1.25, and I'm going to just keep going until I reach a clean set of notes for that action. So this is quite slow, and I'm going to go off camera in a minute, because although in one way it's kind of good for you to see how long these things take, it's also not necessary to always sit you through all of this. There's plenty of videos I've got on here that do sit through the whole process if you're really interested. I think you can get a pretty good idea of what is going on here and why. Like I said, you have a choice. You can either do this yourself with a tool like this, a homemade tool, or you can buy one such as the katana that I mentioned earlier, which is what I originally bought, but through various really unfortunate disagreements or some such on the part of the inventor, it wasn't really worth my while carrying on using it. I mean, the simplest way of saying it, too much grief, and I'm sure he thought so too, but certainly from my perspective, too much grief. I wasn't getting any benefit out of promoting it or saying good things about it. So just necessity being the mother of invention, I just picked up what was lying around in the workshop and used that, and this is the result. So not as convenient to use, and if you've got some money, I recommend you buy the katana. It's not a bad tool at all. If you don't have money, then do what I'm doing. Okay, so working away at it, you can see the amount of material that's coming off these frets starts to build up a little pile of dust, and I can see a flat spot appearing on these frets. They're quite new, so there's quite a lot of life in them, which is good, and we can still carry on with this. We've now got these touched, so these are all level. These are still below the level, and these are still working away. So you've got quite significantly high, 5 high frets here, and 2 significantly high frets there. And that's what's holding the tool off from touching these in the middle. And it means that all of these are in effect lower, which kind of isn't a problem once you, well, it is a problem. If you get into there, the clearances are so small that these were, up to a point, not so much now, I'm starting to ease off, but they were so high that even down here, they were affecting the notes. But like I said, we're aiming, I'm playing the wrong string anyway, we're aiming to reach a place where the note is as clear as it can be with the minimal removal of fret material. Nice. Bit zingy now, and that's caused by unevenness here, which we've not even addressed, because the overall high frets means we haven't even got to this dip here. Not bad, but we need to still carry on. And like I say, eventually we may have to kind of call halt on going down in this area, just because we might not want to take any more material. And the thing is, you might say, how come these frets can be so uneven? Well, I'll demonstrate how uneven they actually are by using a fret rocker. Can't do it on the ones I've levelled, but let's take the ones next to it. There, for example, that is a significantly uneven fret. Some of them change across their length, which doesn't mean they're as uneven all the way across the board, but that's really, listen to that, that's quite an uneven thing. Like the light unevenness, that's major. So these are uneven, and I'm not even getting close to touching them because they're still, well, I haven't got to that part of the neck, but okay, so it literally, it's not uneven there, it just literally becomes uneven. And if I'm looking at it, I could probably zoom up close, I could probably even see this fret sticking out. Now, this is where it comes to an interesting discussion. People probably have loads of different views. Some people believe that the way to go about curing this is to hammer the frets, and the thing is, the question might be, why don't I do that? The reason is, I suppose, just simple for me, is that hammering the frets is kind of hit and miss. Yes, you can be fairly sure that what you're going to do is bash them further in, but you don't know how much further in. And then the other aspect of it for me, which I don't feel very comfortable about, is thinking of the mechanics of wood and glue. If you've been glued in and the glue's set in the past, and then you set about bashing this piece of rigid metal into a soft yielding piece of wood with some semi-stiff glue in there, can't help but think that what you're going to get is a kind of breaking of the glue seal and a bouncing around or springing back of the fret in the hole. So I'd prefer to level it from the top down, providing it doesn't grind away all the material. And I can see just how high, if I look closely, I can see how high these frets are sitting off the fingerboard at the very edges. So it's not been fretted brilliantly well. I can tell that by the amount of unevenness, which in itself then explains why this guitar came with a high action, because it's masking the underlying unevenness. So again, we're just, despite that visually it's suggesting that we need to keep going for hours until we get right down to a kind of common level, I'm going to go on the basis of I want only to do it as far as I need to make it play. See, where it's done levelling, everything sounds good. Perfectly clear notes. Here's the patch we haven't levelled because we can't get to it yet because of the overall height of these pieces. So in here we're going to get a mixture of some relative heights here, so buzzing from here and possibly even still from the high points over here. So it starts to sound much less clear than so it's still little zings and buzzes, and I'm going to keep going because we've got enough fret material. It looks drastic, but we've got enough. If you ever overdo it, then what you'll have lost is one guitar. I mean, it is quite unforgiving. If you think about it, it's quite literally a destructive process in the true sense of the word. You are achieving a fret level by removing material that you can't put back on. And if you couldn't get this to work, then your only bet really would be to refret it. I have to say, on a nice neck like this, it would be worth doing. It might not be worth it financially for someone else, but it'd certainly be worth it for me, since it's only a matter of time as opposed to hard cash. But if you had to pay for it, if you had to pay me to do it for you, then it would definitely may not be worth it, unless it's a sentimental value, in which case the whole sort of the way you assess whether it's worth spending money on is a completely different basis, really. Okay, so I mean, what you may find, if you can't get down to the right levels and you don't want to take any more material off these particularly high frets, and there is still enough room, what you might find yourself doing is saying, okay, look, I can't have the 1.5 millimeters I've dialed in here, and I will concede and go to 2 millimeters and get a cleaner sound from these notes. It's a pity to do that, but you won't know whether that has to happen until you started trying to level and find out what the real condition of these frets are. That's about the only one I still care about. So it's this one, and funnily enough, this one has been this one here has been manually flattened by somebody, and they've done it too far, and I can see because it's flat and it's too low. It's relatively quite a lot too low, which is why it's causing me this problem here, even though these are now levelled. So somebody has screwed up with this, doing this themselves. So there you go, it's like a detective game. But it was a telltale sign of the flattened fret, which was showing up as looking flatter than all the others. I spotted it quite early, and now I can sort of sense or work out why. Somebody's taken some sandpaper, and I can see it again right there. They've gone shh, right, that's taken it down. There's no more buzzing, and they've solved what they thought was one problem. And in doing so, what they've done is create a whole new problem for this neck. But we are doing this very carefully and very scientifically, and we have enough material on the frets to continue to improve this action. And if we can just get down anywhere near that low one, we may not actually end up touching it, but we may just come close enough to cancel out its negative effect, and that's really all we have to worry about. And it may only be on this, in fact it is predominantly on this side that it's been flattened, so you know, we're working with a localized problem really, and as we move away from it, things probably will improve a little bit. But there you go, that's the consequence of somebody doing some home repairs to this in not a very good fashion, not very effective home repairs. You can probably start to see this little piles of filings, if you like, coming off. Lovely notes. Okay. Okay. Shitty because of that low one. Okay. Not brilliant. Let's keep doing a little bit more. This one here, so I can see the ones I'm concerned about. It's this one here. This one's taking the brunt of it. But we've got to remember it's taking the brunt because whereas that one's unusually low because of what someone's done to it, this one is unusually high because it's not been seated properly. So sort of a number of different problems at large. Now I'm going to slightly cheat a bit. I'm going to put a little bit more pressure on this end of the stick. Why? Because I just want to cut a little bit more at this end than anywhere else. Remember, this is all about relative levelness. It's not so important that this one and this one have absolute precise levelness. In other words, the distance will cancel out some of the problem if they are fractionally uneven in respect of each other. It's proximity that's a matter. So if I can get these here level around this dodgily flattened one, then I can kind of, it'll accommodate it in the whole neck. It's not exactly what I want to do in the ideal world, but I'm just conscious that before long I'm going to run out of material. So there you go. You know, it's when you start working on things you can sort of unpick what someone else has done, and you can know why. You know, they've had a go at fixing a specific problem that probably made the guitar unplayable straight out of the box, as far as more than likely. It would have been just, oh, this is horrible, it's choking off, I can't bend the notes. What's the point? Unless I had the action set at 3 or 4 millimeters, which is unplayable. So somebody's gone online and seen how to flatten or take a piece of sandpaper to a fret and fix the fix or take down a fret, and they've levelled it flat, and they've done it too far because they haven't thought about its relation to all the frets around it. You know, and you can do spot levelings if you really want to, but you do have to do it with an awareness of what it then means for the surrounding frets, because you know you will create more you potentially create more problems. I'm going to take a picture of this because I want to make a sort of I want to annotate it, kind of point out that when somebody's leveled it manually, you can create that problem. Okay, I'm going to need to take a break soon because I'm fading. So now we're just going to test. That's good enough. Okay, I got to take a break. I'm going to work the rest of the neck to that standard based on that first strip, but I also know that that problem, that flattening, evens out coming this way, so we should be less hard work as we come towards me. But you can see that's the skill, the difficulty in getting this right, and so there's going to be quite a lot of reshaping needed to happen. But it's what you do to get a properly playing guitar, and you know what it's showing you is the scale of the problems that are built into your guitar. The manufacturer, I'm sorry for anyone who doesn't like this point, but the manufacturer sends the guitar out with this much unevenness built into it, and the result is the only way you can play it is by lifting the action above this unevenness. And what we're doing here is just highlighting the scale of the, I suppose, slapdash way. I mean, what's true is you can't put frets in perfectly. I fret all the time using the press, which is probably more as consistent as hammering, or probably more so for most people, but I do it all the time, and even when I do it there's still some levelling that has to happen, particularly on some larger body guitars with set necks where you cannot get to the top frets with the fret press. You have to use clamps and dangle, rig up jigs and suspend the guitar and so on. And then it can be really difficult to press the frets in as strongly as I would like. So sometimes I can expect one or two high ones up here when I do fretting. On a when all things are even and it's a bolt-on neck that I can take off and feed into the press, I can make a pretty consistent set of frets, and they don't expect them to take too much levelling, and probably not as much as this. So there you go. Hope that's been interesting. I will save you the rest of this. I'll come back when this is done and we'll take the strings off and move to the next stage. Okay, you rejoin me later on, quite a bit later on, and I'm glad I cut the camera at that point because this turned out to be the worst neck that I've come across in years. Well, since I started doing this, one of the worst. And there were just some disastrously low frets messing up everything. And the problem was that they were the result of somebody having done what I kind of detected fairly early on, which is hack away at them in some form or other. And the result was that it was just getting all kinds of buzzing and choking, and things just weren't working. Anyway, I think I've just about got it to a place where it'll play. And now, having flattened the frets, I'm now going to re-profile them, and this is a matter of using this concave file to gently reshape them. So the concave diamond file just cuts off the shoulder or the sharp edges of the flat fret, and it gently rounds it back off into a nice what do you call it, dome shape, I suppose. And the reason I've got marker pen on here is that as I do this, the marker pen stays on the top, but the line of marker pen gets thinner and thinner as I get closer and closer to reshaping the fret, and I want to stop just before I erase the marker pen, if you like. And the reason I leave the marker pen there as a very thin strip across the top is that if every fret now has a bit of marker pen on it, it tells me they're all at exactly the same level than when I started, which means they're relatively level still, and I can then go ahead and polish them, and we've retained the levelness. Now, because of the state of these frets, some of these frets are going to take longer to reprofile than others. It's going to be quite a challenge to actually get there, to get them round again, and to rescue them from their flattened state, really. That's what they're saying. And that's one, for example. Just quite difficult. Excuse me. So it could take quite some time, and even when we do get them as close as we can get, it isn't perfect. I sort of almost wanted to, there's a point in doing this that I fancied refretting this. I'd rather start with a new set of frets that were not screwed up than to try and continue working away at one that was. I think we may just have enough to what the word is, spike these up a bit. For example, we have a very flat spot right there, and I'm doing my best to kind of cut it out and reshape the fret. Not too bad. Occasionally the frets are really easy to do because hardly anything's been taken off them. Precious few on this neck, I have to say. Nice when we do find them. So basically that's the reprofiling part of the operation. Once we've done this, then it'll be a case of moving on to polishing these out. There was a particularly up here, somebody had filed some frets down so far down that they thrown the whole thing off completely. And hopefully we've just got it down, or got it balanced out far enough to make it play okay. But it was a close run thing. As I said right at the beginning, it can end up being a balance between a careful decision, or difficult decision, between whether you're effectively taking frets far too far down and that you might as well end up refretting, or whether you can find some compromise which isn't perfect but it's enough to proceed. And I think that we're about there. The frets have got enough life in them to do that. It's these ones up here that will take a fair bit of work. You can do this with a three-sided file such as this, and I haven't done it that way for a long time since I got this, but it's possible to do it. It's a very cheap alternative. It's a little bit, funny enough, it's a little bit more precise because you've got absolute control over how far up the side of the fret you go, which in a strange way you don't quite have with this. You can be on the roof or on the top of the fret before you know it with this. As soon as it sinks low enough when you're there. These are up here, these are all quite hard work. and it may not be possible to get them absolutely the ideal perfect shape. We may have to compromise with a few slightly flatter spots than we want. To be honest, as long as they're not huge flat spots, they're not too wide, it won't upset the intonation too much. It's when they're a couple of millimetres wide that you'll really start to notice the difference. When you do have flat spots, the sort of hardest thing of all is to make sure at the polishing stage that you're getting out any of the scratches that still reside at the top of the flat spot, because that's kind of tend to be where the scratches are to be found. And those scratches, if you leave them there, will affect the string bending and so on. It's quite hard work, especially when you're recovering from an operation. We're nearly there, 4 or 5 to go, but these are all fairly severely worked on, so they've all got a fair bit of muscle needed on them. As soon as you run the file across the top, it reveals the areas needing the most work. They kind of show up as wide black marks. It's very easy to see. Well, that's as rounded as I'm going to get with that one, I'm afraid. Where there's a single spot that sort of stands out, it's quite difficult to get into that and thin it out. You probably end up having to just compromise, get as close as you can, close as you can, and then move on, really. Which is there. And finally, so the hard work in this is pretty much all the result of somebody having cut some frets down really badly here, and I'm hoping that we're going to get something playable out of this at the end. I can't be 100% sure. And now what I need is a couple of things. I need some 600 grit paper and some 1200 for the final polishing stage. And I've got another guitar to do, so I'm just doing double the material. I'm just going to tear some strips and make some sets of these. I might take another break since I'm feeling a bit worn out after all that fret levelling malarkey. But we'll get there. So we have 1200s, 600s, 1200s, 600s. So the idea of this is to start with 600 grit on these frets, and then work down to the 1200, and then after the 1200 to move to a set of micro mesh papers, which is kicking around somewhere, and they take you down to sort of shine of that level. So there they are. They range from 1500 down to 12,000, which is really, really fine. So again, I'm going to save a lot of the hassle. I'll just describe pretty much what I'm going to do. So I'm going to start with using my hands, and I'm going to set this up high so the frets are standing up, and I'm just going to, sorry about the noise here, I'm going to use my hands to ride up and down all the frets, and just kind of gently to begin with run the whole length of the fretboard. And I'm aiming to remove the remainder of the black marker pen, and at the same time any scratching that was left with the tool, fret leveling tool. Now I think I remember this being a little bit sharp, these frets. I'm just going to also take a little bit of, do a little bit of softening on the edges around here. Well, we can, there's no reason why not to. Okay, so then I'm probably going to use about 4 of these sheets of paper. Just doing this. I'm pressing in with my hands so that the paper kind of glides up and over the frets rather than, I don't want it to just skate across the top. You can see some of the flattened frets sitting up here, and they're noticeably flat, but that's unfortunately the price I've got to pay for the fretwork that was done before. Once I've done a couple of these 600 pieces with by hand, I'll switch to using this block, which will allow me to do the same job but prevent me from ending up with blisters. So again, at this point, the black marker pen is a good indicator of where we have and haven't been, but it's really the little scratches on the very top of the frets that I'm most worried about now. I'm going to get all of those gone. And really, it is about taking as long as it takes to get rid of those scratches, because that's the thing that's now going to make or break the playing experience. And on these flat surfaces, flattened surfaces, it's quite hard to remove those scratches. I'm sort of paying as much attention as I can. A lot of dust coming off at this point, and the guitar will get dirty in this process. Again, the first and the last frets often get overlooked. Oh, that's not what I want to have happen. Yeah, they often get overlooked. So you need to pay a bit of attention to those, extra attention, because again, you don't want the scratches left on there as we go into the more finer grade polishing stages. Okay, so that's 2 by hand, and then I'll switch off now and come back when it's all done. But that's the principle involved. So I'm going to get on and do another 2 the 600 grit, and then shift to a couple of 1200s, and on we go. But this time I'll use the block, and I'll see you when it's all done and the paper comes off, and hopefully we'll get into the restringing and finishing the setup. Then it should all be just about perfect. Okay, and we're back again with the Deacon, and we've levelled the frets after a lot of hard work, profiled them, polished them with sandpaper, which I saved you the misery of having to watch, and sorry about the noise. Now the much more fun part of restringing it and seeing what we've got at the end of it. I mean, at the moment it's looking great. What I don't know, though, given this pretty terrible state of play, with the frets and how badly savaged some of them have been. Don't know exactly if it's going to play perfectly well. I think you might just get a good action out of it, about around 1.5, 1.6 millimeters, but no lower than that I think on this. And that's the price I'm going to pay for the whatever's been done. And
Dinner's ready.
oh, thank you. You there now? I shall just quickly thread these and press pause. It's easier to put them all through in one go while we've got the guitar standing up on its side. I'm threading this, fitting this with a set of 9s. Although it played quite nicely with 10s, but go with the 9s generally. Right. We just started the camera up. Go and get something to eat. But okay, there we are, ready to carry on. And we'll come back out. See you in a minute. And onwards. So here we are with the stringing, and because of the way around this setup is done, we should expect that once we string this, everything else should be right on target, so there shouldn't be any surprises or any even any other setup required. This should pretty much just pop into playability, obviously bearing in mind that we've got some stretching of the strings to do. But it shouldn't, and nothing should be a surprise at this point. We should just put the strings through, thread them through, tighten them up, snip them off, and we should be kind of ready to play once we've stretched, taken the excess stretch out of the strings. Now, that's a nice thing about doing it this way round, which is a change from the original way I used to do it. So I'm doing a 1 over and 2 under kind of winding here on the strings as I put them on. Just gives it a bit of self-locking thing, and then just cutting them straight short. It's feeling good so far. It's looking nice. I mean, it's a great looking guitar, I think. I know this green won't be to everyone's taste, but I think the combination of the cream and the green, sort of minty green down here, is really nice. Wow. So basically at this stage in the game, it's a matter of tuning it up, stretching the strings, testing it out, maybe making a couple of tiny adjustments to the playing action. You know, on this one, for example, if we really couldn't get this fret up here to work at all, then we may have to compromise. But once we've done that, then it's a matter of setting the intonation. I wouldn't be surprised if it's pretty close on this guitar already, given that it's been worked on somewhere in the past. Although it's been worked on, whatever was done to the frets wasn't very good. But the pickups look and sound pretty cool. That's one of the things that I think Wilkinson does do some fairly good basic stuff. Never found anything of theirs that I didn't really like. I feel like I made a little bit of progress today. excuse me, which is quite good. I've got two guitars, one I've done completely, this one, and my vintage AV6, which I've finished the fretting process, which is basically was at the same stage as I just did this one, meaning I had to reshape and then polish the frets. I think I left a little bit of too much slack on there, but it's not the end of the world. Okay, clip them under the string retainers, snip off the excess, and there we are. Visually, that's our baby. Bit of sticky something on the back there to clean off in a minute. So, just as a feel, feels a lot better straight away. Just going to sort of whiz along while it's still slack before I do my first tuning. I'm just going to pull out some of the obvious excess slack in these strings. And then we'll go for the first tuning, pull some more slack, and then the second tuning. I did have a tool for this, but it's broken a couple of strings just because you can't feel what's going on exactly, so I've kind of reverted to doing it more by hand. It's very tactile. Okay, I'm nothing in here, so I'll go for a tuning off the amp. This is where we get the first proper feel of it. Plays. It's not not quite as much fret metal as I'd have liked, but we weren't starting from new anyway, and we had that mess of a fretwork that somebody else had done before to cope with, so given that, the fact that it's come out as well as it has is pretty good, and I would say it's kind of, it's got half of its playing life left in it quite easily, which isn't bad. You know, good few years of playing. Again, a little bit more stretching. So, looking good so far. Handsome looking thing, nicely shined up, nicely restrung. Excuse me, the action lowered at least halved on what it was. It was just over 3mm at the 22nd fret and 0.85 at the first, which is way too high. So, stick a strap on it. And give it a listen. will give it a feel. Nice looking axe. I'll bring the amp up on the table because I'll need that to do the intonation anyway. Quite a wide neck, that's what it feels like anyway. Plectrum, yes, I've got one in my pocket. Last little bit of stretching. Green plectrum as well to go with it. High output pickups actually. Hello Morris. What I want to know, make sure that we've got bending notes. Bending everywhere, which is good. Sparkly, these Wilkinson pickups. Quite nice. Quite bright. What do you think, Morris? He likes it, I can tell. Don't shove around your bum. he's wet, he's been outside. So, having fought that for quite some time, I like the way it's turned out. It's what I noticed about this is that this suits somebody with quite wide hands, or big hands, fat fingers. No, big hands. To me, it feels like the strings are spaced quite widely. Maybe I'm just imagining it. But anyway, so you got your neck pickup. Expect it to go out of tune slightly, but quite a nice sound. Middle and neck. Middle, bridge and middle, I've lost someone somewhere. 1, 2, 3, and bridge. So, not bad for a set of Wilkinson pickups. I think all round, with a steel extra big block in the back there. It's finely rescued frets. Nice looking skunk-striped neck. Okay, it's got a little bit of a pointy, funny headstock, but this for me is a likeable Strat. Nice out of tune. What it sounds like with lots of gainy stuff on it. Rectifier. Wow, no, that's not the right setting. Well, there you have it. A few different sounds, mostly clean. Okay, next thing on the list then, just let's get the intonation set, and to do that I'm going to need a screwdriver, and a tuning app. Should be enough. Keep bashing guitars on that clamp, which isn't a good idea, and I also need the right head for the screwdriver, which is a small Phillips head, which should be sitting around on there already. Okay, so aim of this is to make sure we tune to the 12th fret harmonic. And if the string is the correct length for this neck, then we will find that the fretted 12th note is the same as the pinged harmonic on the 12th. In this case, it's looking a little bit sharp. Go through them all first and see how it lies. Close. Slightly sharp. Slightly sharp. Slightly sharp. So all of them except the G, I think, are slightly sharp. That means that if it's sharp, it means the string length is slightly too short. So we need to fire in a kind of clockwise motion to bring the saddles back a couple of turns. So I'm doing 2 or 3 or 4 on each one. Leave the G where it is, and then 2, 3 or 4 on this one as well, and we'll retry everything again. It will alter the tuning, so we need to retune. Pretty good. This is not scientific on the basis that you change the pressure, how you fret every time, so you can't expect it to be the same. So the kind of best of a few goes, really. You're just trying to average it out. A bit further back. It's very, very slight, this adjustment, so hardly you can go a long way before you get too far out. Further back with this one, that's the D. See where we go. Still sharp, so I'll pull it back some more. Get that. Good. Beautiful. So there we have it. That, ladies and gentlemen, completes the full setup of this Deacon Stratocaster in beautiful green with lovely cream and mint coloured doofer scratch plate, and I think this, given the kind of sheer amount of fight this thing put up, but generally speaking, this has surprised me in terms of all over quality. This is a really nice guitar, and whoever gets this won't be disappointed with it, but it put up a fight around these frets that somebody else had knackered. What I've got to do here, while we're still in the business, is just put back on the plate at the back. Even that's really good quality, so I don't know if this has been bought afterwards or something, but nice thick plastic. Looks good, completely unscratched, so it's hardly been used, except sadly for where somebody's messed about lowering frets badly. But we were able to kind of overcome it, and now I think we've got a really nice guitar here. So I reckon we shall see this photograph tomorrow, with a bit of luck listed on eBay sometime by tomorrow night, which will be way after this video goes out anyway. Then thank you for spending the whole time with me. Hope you've learned some useful stuff from it. I'm just going to crank these neck bolts one more time, just make sure they are nice and tight. After all the shims had a little time to settle down, so that's good, feels nice, and there we are done. Beautiful. Look forward to somebody enjoying that. That's a nice guitar. Right, there you go. Thank you very much. See you again. I said see you again. Switch off, damn you.